I suppose for me, it actually goes back a long way till I was about when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I actually got I received a clock radio for Christmas one year, and it was my first kind of thing that allowed me to control my own music. And my dad had one of those handheld cassette things, and I used to crawl under my bed at night, like the top 8 at 8 on whatever station it was, and I used to take this cassette player and my clock radio and kind of stick them together to record songs off the radio onto this tape. And I realized like I do it, and it sounded awful, of course. So then I started like wrapping pillows around it and stuff to try and isolate them to get a better sound and stuff. And to be honest, as I think back now, it's like that to me is like where I didn't know it at the time, but obviously I was interested in recording music and how it sounded. And then I got, I started playing drums. I started as a drummer, and then I got a guitar when I was around 12 or 13. And I quickly got into recording. Same thing. I'd record onto this little cassette thing. I'd play drums, record onto the cassette, and then I'd take it to the stereo in the basement, and I blast the drums out of the stereo while I played guitar and record the two of those onto this little cassette thing. And then I'd swap tapes again and just layer up. And then shortly after that, I got a 4 track, and that was it. So I never played in bands till I was about 17, but I was recording on my own from about the age of 12 or something. So that was kind of where I realized that I had this real interest in it. So yeah, I went to the Harris Institute, and when I was 19, right out of high school, I went to there, and I got an internship at a place called Reaction Studios, where I worked for 10 years, and I met so many incredible people. We worked like it was a good studio. We worked with so many great bands, so many great producers, and that was getting my internship there was a huge thing. They had a little B room in the back, and I literally remember jumping up and down. I was so excited just to be in a studio. And for like 5 or 6 years, I was just, I worked for free for a year and a half, and then they started me on salary at $60 a week, which was yeah, that was pretty sweet. So I was happy about that. So that was the biggest one, to start just getting into the system. And it felt like such an exclusive thing back then. It was like home recording wasn't really happening then. So to be a part of that club was like the coolest thing I could imagine at that point. I guess I started as the runner there, and then I ended up as the chief engineer after about 10 years and stuff. Kind of working there, we worked with tons of bands, but working with Rush was probably the crowning thing there, because they were in for 11 months, kind of near the end of my time. They started in January 5th, wrote the entire record, and I was the assistant on this project. So, and then they finished December 5th. So it was 11 months to the day, and they didn't even mix it by that point. They mixed later, but after that, I kind of had seen it all. I think at Reaction, it was just like, there was no bigger band really that we were going to see in there um, that I'd be working with. So shortly after, I quit and went freelance, and then started just kind of producing small indie bands. Um, and that was it. I fell in with the scene of all these like cool, really, really hip indie bands. And then they all played in 2 or 3 bands. So you'd make a record with one of them, and then they'd have another band they'd want to make a record with. And I was like a good 10 years older than everyone. So everyone thought of me as like this aged grandpa figure. I was probably 30 at the time or so. So that was kind of, that really kind of started my freelance career off. And I worked with a ton of great bands, some who have carried on to do well and stuff like that. But yeah, I've met so many of my best friends and stuff during that time, and the time before at Reaction. So that was. Uh, Geez, I guess, obviously preparation of any kind is good. For musicians, be shrewd with your self editing. I think it was Tom Petty who said, you know, like it took him a long time to realize that just because he wrote it, it didn't mean it was good. And I think people have to take, you know, a lot of people are very precious about their stuff. And I think learning to not be precious, but taking time to really hone your craft writing wise, that's where it all begins. In terms of practice, 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 practice. Click tracks are your friend in the studio. So don't, if you're not good at them, don't swear off them like it's some badge of honor. You know, like some people are like, oh, it ruins the feel. It doesn't. Only for people who can't play with them does it ruin the feel. You know, for most people, it actually helps a lot. And it opens up a lot of doors that way. So, yeah, so I think, but the biggest thing I think going into any studio is to try and learn how to relax. You know, that's the, find people you trust and who can set up a scenario that makes you comfortable, because the best results always come from people who are relaxed, who are there to have fun, who aren't kind of, you know, super stressed about everything around them, and can really focus all their energy, available energy, on what the song deserves and what the song, you know, at hand needs. And that, so again, and relaxing comes from being prepared, I think. So any and all levels of preparation you can have in place, do that, because once you get in there, the more chill out and the more fun you're having, the better the results every time. I think one of the things is often, you have to be able to you have to be able to manage your expectations. I think, you know, a lot of people coming into the studio think they want to sound like this, they want to sound like that, they want to sound like their heroes and their influences and that. And most of the time, pretty much all the time, you're going to sound like you sound. You're going to sound like the room on that day, with that engineer, with that producer. It's going to be the collective. You're going to get this, you know, the parts are going to add up, and that's what it's going to be. And you have to work with, you have to be able to adapt to that, what it is, and work with what it is, because the speakers don't lie. The speaker, you know, those two speakers are the truth. So what they're telling you is what you have to work with that day. It's not about, you have this, you know, obviously you have visions for stuff and you want to pursue that stuff, but you also have to be realistic about, do you sound like whoever it is these days? You know, back in the day it was, I want to sound like Radiohead, and then I want to sound like Feist, and now it's like I want to sound like Billie Eilish or something, or, you know, it's like, you're going to sound like you. The world doesn't need more Radioheads and Billie Eilishes. They need more of the people that are in there, you know. And that's so it's kind of managing those sonic expectations and working with what's coming out in any given moment. To me, I think that's the biggest hurdle for young bands. That's tough. I don't know. Like, there's, everyone has their weaknesses, everyone has their strengths, you know. And obviously, I think trusting in others is a tough one, you know, because especially with young bands, you're working on your first record. You've had technically your whole life to develop this, so you have this, probably you have this idea of what it's going to be, what it should be, and yes, you have to pursue that and you work towards it tirelessly, but also you have to trust others too. And it's a fine line, you know. You don't want to give away too much. You don't want to compromise too much, but making records and making great records is about compromise, and you have to find the right people and the right situations in that. But I think it is, a lot of the time it's trust, you know. It's being willing to be open to other ideas, and if it goes too far, there's a line, you know. And it's allowing others to help in the process, you know. I find collaboration is usually, with the right people, is the best way to get cool results, because there's nothing, I know for myself as a producer who's been doing it for whatever 27 years or something, the best thing for me in any session, I don't want to hear me. I want to hear what everyone else has to say. And the best thing for me is when someone brings in something I don't expect. You know, I love being surprised. And that doesn't happen when you're blocking out other ideas, you know. Then, so I think it is kind of trying to maintain some sense of direction of where you want to go, but also some openness to other influence during the process. Because hopefully the people you're working with have been there before and done things that you might not have thought of. And so it's, it's kind of the half open door is a good one. Okay, well, I think time for one of them negative answers, but I mean, just how shitty it can be. How hard, it's, to be honest, how, I don't know if I should be surprised or not, but how difficult, like, the financial, side of it can be. And with how continually difficult it's been for artists to make a living doing this and to get compensated for their work. And it's kind of gotten worse with streaming and that, like the labels and the streaming services, as convenient and wonderful as they are in my opinion, I think they're destroying the quality of the industry, and that people cannot practice their trade full time anymore, or a lot of them can't because they can't afford to make a living off music, or they can't afford to live with the amount of money they make from music. So they're not plying their trade 24/7. They have responsibilities and have to pay rent and make money elsewhere. And I think that's really going to hurt the quality of what's coming out. With that said, I think there's more bands than ever making music, but is the quality going to suffer? Also, with that said, what continually surprises me is how gratifying it can be, though, a life in music, in how even without the money, there are so many perks that come out of it. It's like the ability to live a lifestyle. Like, I love my lifestyle. I literally sit in, I love that I can go out for coffee every day at 11, meet up with friends, go to lunch, come back, work when I want. I love that kind of stuff. I love the friendships I've made. And that to me is absolutely the most valuable part. There is a wealth of incredible talent and genuinely amazing people in the Canadian music industry. I can't speak for other industries, but I've met such incredible people who are so inspired, so talented, and who make it work somehow. They figure it out, and I think that facing young bands now with kind of not knowing where the future of it is, like in terms of streaming, if it's ever going to be, if the compensation's ever really going to change or get better, it's hard to know where that's going. So, but people have always just figured it out, and it's there's some really great people doing it. Surround yourself with as many of those people as you can, and get on with it. It's not going to be people like me that figure out how this works. It's going to be like people like you're talking about right now that are going to be the ones that fix it or solve it, not fix it. It might not get fixed. Who knows? I hope it does. But yeah, kids are going to figure it out. They're smarter than we are. So it's, I hope they do it. It ain't easy sometimes, that's for sure. So there has to be other stuff that you love about it and care about that makes it worthwhile, because the money is tough. Sorting the money side out is tough. So there's got to be other stuff involved that makes it worth doing. It's really just about you have to love what you do. The reason you have to do this is because you love it, and that has to be everything about it. Because again, the compensation is tough. The hours are awful, and yet we still all do it with a smile some days, because we all love it. And you have to have that passion for it, I think, or else it's a grind if you don't have that. I don't know if I'm in a place to give advice, again, like, because the industry is changing. I think it's like people figure it out, it's worth it. The world needs this world needs strong art in it. And it's so important that, just love it, keep at it, however you can, that's all I can say. I mean, I'm not in a place. I'm part of a generation that let this industry go down the toilet. So what, it's people, young kids will figure it out, and they'll do it better than I could ever imagine. So that's my advice. Don't listen to old farts like this, and just go figure it out.